following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network. Welcome to Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz, where we put God, family, and country first and challenge the woke cancel culture one episode at a time. Now, please welcome the host of the show, Drake Wirtz, and Rad Rob Francois.
Hey guys, welcome back to Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz. This is episode number 58, and I am your host, Rad Rob Francois, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Cornette's favorite wrestler, Mr. Drake Wirtz. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening, Rad Rob, man. I appreciate the intro. Episode 58, it's an exciting week, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing our incredibly special guest. Folks, she is an ECW original. She is currently with XPW. She is the host of the Crazy Train podcast, and she is one of my favorite people in all of entertainment. Great friend of mine, a conservative badass. Please welcome Jasmin St. Clair. Jasmin, how are you?
I'm amazing. This works so much better. Thank you for having me on tonight. So excited.
You are amazing. You are amazing. We have figured out that you have to get on Google Chrome for the platform that we use here.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thanks so much. I know you got a crazy busy schedule. You have your own podcast, and you were just out, you know, making the lefties go crazy at all times of the day. So we appreciate that. But thanks for taking time with us.
No, I had to. And, you know, no matter how long it takes, it's fine because I love doing these because I finally get to, I'm like a little kid. So when I start talking politics, I got amped up for a few hours and then I'll kind of wind down. And then if I start talking it again, I'll be up for 2-3 more hours. So it's good. It's totally fine.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, before we talk politics, let's talk a little wrestling. Rad Rob?
Yes, as you mentioned, she is an ECW original now working for XPW Wrestling. But I'd like to know, and I'm sure a lot of fans would also like to know if you haven't covered it recently, what's your earliest memories of being a wrestling fan, and how did you actually get involved in the crazy world of wrestling?
My grandmother would watch TV every Sunday or Saturday, and I'd hear her screaming at the TV screen. She was screaming at like Miss Elizabeth or like Jimmy Snuka. She took me to see Snuka at Madison Square Garden. And then my first WrestleMania was Hulk Hogan. No, it was the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan in Toronto at the Skydome.
Yep.
Oh my God, it was amazing. So I have my Ultimate Warrior jacket still. I still have all of my stuff from that era, and there's no way I will ever part with it. It's a very precious time, and I don't know, like, it's just things sort of find me. I don't really go looking for it. And Rob Black got me into ECW. The big misconception is people think I was in XPW than ECW. I went to ECW and then they didn't have that working relationship they're supposed to have. So I was back with Rob at XPW. Then I went to Memphis Championship Wrestling at ECW. But I used to watch Glow as well. So that was
awesome.
Fun.
And you know, you're talking about WrestleMania 6. I remember that was like such a really cool time because back in those days, you never had a babyface versus a babyface. Like, and that was like the top two. I mean, it was the Intercontinental Champion and the World Heavyweight Champion. I remember I was so torn because I was like a diehard Hulkamaniac, but the Ultimate Warrior was like the new guy, and I had the tassels and the face paint and everything. So, man, that just brings up great memories for me. Jasmin, I want to ask you real quick. You know, obviously, a large amount of us, we just really love and just treasure that ECW era. Can you talk about what it was like there, you know, in that time frame, 98, 99, where like not only ECW, but the business as a whole, professional wrestling as a whole was just on fire. I mean, WCW, WWF, ECW, the independents, it was crazy business that I don't think will ever be replicated. Just, I mean, if you could just let the listeners know what it was like during that time, you know, did you realize you were involved in something special, or, you know, what can you tell us about that incredible time in pro wrestling?
Well, special is the right word. I didn't really know, like, I knew it was very fiery at that time because you had competition, which is very healthy, and you had the Attitude Era. So you had all of the profanity, you had all of the nudity, you had all the TNA, you had the violence. It was sex and violence, and that's what sells. Yeah. And ECW was a very, how could you put it? It was very family-like in the dressing room. Yeah. We never really had serious problems with anyone, and it was nice. I feel like the more hardcore wrestlers you had in a dressing room that were willing to do all of the things they did to their bodies, I think they were more humble, and it was a different atmosphere. I was backstage at WCW a couple of times, and I like Terry Taylor and Vince Russo. I just didn't get what they were doing. But I was friends with wrestlers there. It was sad when everything just started to decline, but being a part of it was something I'm really grateful for. Could that ever be recreated? No, because we only have, like, you've got Vince, you have that other guy with the frizzy hair. And, I think XPW is doing really well. And I wish that, everyone gets work, because there's a lot of good talent out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can, kind of echo what your sentiment said. It's generally like the hardcore deathmatch guys, or 9 times out of 10, like the nicest, most laid back, easygoing dudes.
Kind of. I mean, did you see those comments? Hardcore, whatever his name is, that hard body guy. He was leaving some pretty rude comments. So I don't know.
Oh, I think he'll get his. But yeah.
Yes, he will.
No, I'll get it. Don't worry, he'll get his from me.
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of ECW, and I remember watching it on, I think it was Channel 11 out of New York, on like 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. It's like they didn't have the greatest schedule back then before they got into national television with TNN and Spike. But I absolutely loved watching ECW, and obviously loved watching Jasmin in the ring. Who didn't? Was there anybody there? And I don't really want you to call anybody out, but
just ask it.
Was there anybody there you didn't get along with?
No.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's good.
It's hard not to get along with someone there. You must be a really special person. I know that there was some stuff between the girls. I just kind of didn't want any part of that. And I think towards the end, when things were shutting down and that grim reality came forward, it really brought out the worst in some people, but not anyone I was friends with. Yeah.
Okay.
But the girls were great. I mean, these girls really, these weren't like half-seared tables. They really went through tables. Right. And I feel as though a lot of wrestling lacks that whole thing with managers these days. Some places have it, some places don't. And yeah, I mean, it was great. I liked it. I think it was fun. It was a shock, though, like 2 minutes before a match, Paul Heyman going up to Balls Mahoney or to Nova. Oh, hey, you're going to take this, what is it, the Nutcracker sweep? Would you protect her like a little kid? Yeah, no problem. Next thing you know, I'm like, oh, God, here we go.
Yeah.
It's scary because there's sweat, there's like adrenaline, there's, crowd, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I'm glad that like you look back on that as like a special time, and just, so many of the guys and gals that you were around at that time, unfortunately, they're no longer with us. So I think that just kind of makes you really treasure those times as well. Even, me to a lesser extent, my time through the independents, there's so many people in locker rooms where, like, it's almost sad where you watch these highlights, these old videos, and it's like, oh man, I'm like the only person in the ring that's like still alive, and it's just like, man, it really, anytime that I'm around wrestling nowadays, I just kind of treat it as if it's going to be my last, just because I've been around so long, and I know you have, Jasmin, as well. You've been in so many locker rooms, and you've promoted as well. You've ran your own company, and so it just really makes you appreciate, like, and cherish every moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's scary because I worked with Public Enemy for Jimmy Hart at XWF. XWF had potential to do really well. I remember meeting Hulk Hogan that day too, or that weekend, and the Road Warriors. But it was really sad because Rocco died on the way to work for me. Mm-hmm. And then I remember, it was really scary. Then I was at the wake. You see Johnny Grunge there. Then not too long after that, they're both gone. Then you have Balls Mahoney, New Jack. It it's really sad what happens. And like, who was it? Not Nancy Sullivan.
Her too.
Yeah.
No, that was a different story. No, that was then Sherry Martel.
Yeah.
So someone said something really bad once that worked with me in ECW. It was another girl, and she's like, "Oh, I bet Missy Hyatt will be the first of the girls to go." It's like, how could you say something like that?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and as much as I've ribbed Missy, and she figured it out much later on, which was really embarrassing, we're still really good friends.
That's cool. Again, before we kind of move on, I do want to touch on, because there was a period of time in the early mid 2000s where you ran your own promotion and you were very successful at it during that time. Can you just touch on what it's like to be a promoter, to be an owner, be the one responsible for everything that's happening in front of the camera, behind the camera, and secondly, what it's like to be a female promoter, because it's pretty rare.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. And I had Todd Gordon helping me out. I had an assistant that was booking all the hotels.
It was 3PW, by the way, for folks that aren't aware. Yeah, 3PW. Yeah.
Propane Pro Wrestling. And, I organized the DVD deal. I got us Sky TV overseas. I got us like smaller spots. It was really just a fun thing when we did the body bag match, just to do it for the fun of it. And I had, how can I put it? There was, it was financed by some people. So yeah, and it was fun, running everything, and it was really nice seeing people work. It was really nice with younger talent. Matt Stryker started with us. Who else? Talia, who's Velvet Sky, Damian Adams, Rob Echo. A lot of those guys started there, and it was really nice. Plus, I got a chance to see people like I never thought I'd meet them, and I met Jimmy Snuka. It's a lot of people. Terry Funk.
I know a mutual old acquaintance of you and I's worked for you there as well. Ian Rotten. He said it was good.
Ian. I worked for Ian too. That was fun. But I'll say this much: like working for NWA TNA, they knew me pretty well there enough where they knew that if they had talent working for me one night, that they'll be there the next day on time. Like I was known as very responsible. I was known as a not so nice person because I was very picky about the locker room, how it was in the back, and people just not coming and going because it's not a free for all. And if you want to do your drugs, you don't do that on my dime. You have to wait till after. Right. I was pretty strict, but I loved everyone there, and it was a fun time. Then I just one day I just didn't feel like doing it anymore, and I didn't show up. So contrary to popular belief, I didn't take off with promoters' money or anything like that. I just decided not to go, and that was it.
Okay. Yeah. You ran a tight ship. I like it.
So what made you want to get back into wrestling?
It's a drug. Like, I don't do drugs or anything. I never had that. Of course, I've dabbled with cocaine here and there and pills here and there now and again, but not like recently or anything like that. Right. So I don't know. It's like adrenaline. I'm sort of a thrill seeker. I ride motorcycles, and you asked me to jump out of a plane, like skydive, I'll do it. I'll try like almost anything once, except a death match. But I'll get in the ring. There's a shit ton of blood and glass. It's no problem doing that. But with all the like skincare products that I keep getting from everyone, it's just it's like I can't do.
If you follow Jasmin's Instagram, she is huge on skincare products and revitalizing yourself and the IV drips. I mean, this woman knows how to like get all the products to help you take care of your body. So she's a great follow on Instagram, by the way. Highly recommend. While we're at it, give everybody your Instagram tag. Sure.
It's The Real Jasmin St. Clair. So The Real, then Jasmin, JASMIN STCLAIRE. So you could follow me on there.
Awesome. I love your accent too. What's your heritage?
It's crazy. So it's actually Brazilian and Dutch, but I grew up speaking French. So it's this whole thing. And I specialize in dialects. So, that's what comes out when I'm lazy. Like, I don't talk like a New Yorker when I'm lazy or nothing like that. So it goes. It comes and it goes sometimes. Plus, I do acting. And this whole term with acting, we are doing more dialects. And they gave me this scene from Girl Interrupted. I've never seen the movie. I don't want to see it. So it's just this whole part of it. It's a final, 3 months of seeing another set of people I've grown super close to. Most of them, not the liberals, though. They get scared when they go on my posts.
Speaking of liberals, before we talk about the current happenings that are going on in this crazy world that we're in, one of the things that I really appreciate you for is you are like me, where we are a small breed of people that are in the entertainment industry, and we are open with our conservatism. I think we've talked offline, Jasmin and Rob. We've talked about this on the show as well. Or if you get on social, if you get on Twitter, entertainers, athletes, musicians, they're those that push the liberal narrative. And again, all three of us, we love the Constitution, we love America, we appreciate and worship free speech. So regardless if we agree with their ideas, they have the right to push these stupid, crazy ideas, but they get praised from the whole entire masses. But heaven forbid, somebody that's in entertainment, whether it's acting, whether it's modeling, pro wrestling, UFC with Colby Covington, if they push, promote any kind of conservative values or just, common sense policies, or heaven forbid they, support a Republican that's running for office, then they just attempt to crucify us and end our career. I mean, it's no secret, people tried to cancel my 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears that I poured into the pro wrestling business. Before people knew that I was a conservative or before I ran for office as a Republican, I was like the guy. But I think I've proven, Jasmin's proven, some others are proven that you can be a conservative. You can stand up for what you believe in and still be successful in whatever field you're involved in. So, Jasmin, that's my long way around, asking you, what is it like to be a conservative in entertainment? Have you ever has anybody ever tried to just cancel any contracts you had or any kind of roles in movies, and just can you just speak to those other people out there that may be conservatives and they might be kind of afraid or shy to even to stand for those beliefs for fear of having their careers ruined? So take it away.
There are more people on sets than you think that are conservative, way more, and they come together. Especially I have my show on Rumble as well, and Freedom First TV. I have those shows. So people know that I'm doing it. It's easy to pass it around. But at the end of the day, I'm nice to everyone. Yeah. And it's not what I like, who I vote for. It's how do I treat you as a human being? Then some of them try to argue these things with gay marriage, this and that. It's no. I'm not against, I'm against child marriage. And I'm against transgenders adopting a kid, because it's two sickos adopting a kid. So, I speak my mind. Nobody's ever canceled me about this, and not yet. I know people complain to the school, to the acting school, and this is a Meisner technique school, so that's you have to audition to get in there, first of all. Then you're going to complain about me. So, screw you, and, I don't need to hear this. I was thrown off dating apps at one point because it said swipe left if you have a man bun or you're a liberal, because I already have I don't know if you're allowed to say the word on your show, but I already have a vagina. So you just swipe left. Yeah, and that's the only kind of guy that wears a man bun.
There's two genders. There's two genders. Okay.
There's still two genders. Yes.
Yeah.
Really? Oh my God. I had no idea.
Yeah. Contrary to what the state government of California says.
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in now, and there's things that I see now I didn't think we would ever see. And I know every generation says that, but to me, living in this day and age, I don't think it's been any crazier than it is right now, and I don't see it getting any better. Jazz, how is it living out in California, being a conservative amongst the wackos?
Oh, I love it. I love I cannot understand. I love messing with people. I love messing with them. I love making them like get all upset. I just love it so much. I mean, I think they need their emotional support animal to speak with me sometimes. And they could do that if they want. It's totally fine. But I don't care. I'll bitch at them. And I've told people off before. I wore my Mike Lindell t-shirt to the gym. People gave me dirty looks. Then I have, this is an ugly sweatshirt. It has Hillary, Kamala. It's that psycho with the weird eyes who drinks and from New York, and AOC.
Yeah.
And I think Maxine Waters was, oh my God, Maxine Waters. Yeah, she was on it. By the way, I just have to say, I know this is going back, but remember Maxine Waters? She had like a face mask on and that visor along with gloves. It's like, what are you? That looks psycho.
Yeah.
It was always crazy during the the COVID wildness where
I love it.
Where people they'd be double masked up. They'd have gloves, have the shield. They'd like do the instead of shaking hands, they'd do like the elbow bump thing. It's like oh man, they're scared of their own shadow. God bless them.
They still wear masks here. They still wear them. They wear them in the car. Some woman put her mask up over her face as she walked by me. I just started laughing. And you're an idiot if that's what you're going to do. And if anyone says anything to me about a mask, someone said I'm killing people. I said, no, I'm not. I said, if I did, I would put you at the top of my list for sure. You really can't argue with me, and you could try, but it's just half the things I say are so outrageous, but I don't care. I really don't care. I like my life's half over. So I don't like, je m'en fous. It's a saying in French. I don't give a so that's really the truth. You can't defend people.
Yeah, if you're going throughout life just worried about what other people are going to say, then, man, it's not a good, healthy, productive way to live. And admittedly, I did, for the last few months that I was in WWE, I was like, oh, man, I got to be quiet about being conservative. I can't talk about Trump or nothing like this. And then I was just like, once I just said, screw it, I'm going to be who I am. And then, once I kind of had that freedom and that weight lifted off me, it's an amazing feeling. And now, like, I can kind of bounce into wrestling. People know, hey, Drake believes what he believes in. Jasmin believes in what she believes in. Necro believes in what he believes in. But, like, at the end of the day, it goes back to what Jasmin said. I'm kind to everybody, respectful to everybody, especially in the locker room. And I treat everybody well. If you want to have a nice, civil discussion, be happy to do that. But again, it's at the end of the day, just stand for what you believe in, be who you are, and this is the greatest country to ever exist on the face of the earth, and we shouldn't be ashamed to say that, and also we shouldn't be ashamed to say that there are only two genders, as Jasmin said. So,
or MAGA, PBS almost they didn't want to print my MAGA Christmas ornament. It's me saying it says have a very MAGA Christmas. It's a XPW thing. They at first didn't want to print the Christmas ornaments. Yeah. And I like raised hell. Then I went in there today to pick it up. This girl with multicolored hair, so you could just figure out the rest of the narrative right there, just gave me the dirtiest looks. You know what? I think it's great. I just love it. But it's kind of scary because I feel as though there's so many more people right now that actually, like, especially in wrestling, like fans that are on the MAGA train. And one thing I noticed in Florida that you have is Lexit, which is like it's the Latino version of Blackset, and it's a really big movement that people are starting to join. It's important.
And I'm going to give some good news out of California, and we'll talk about Jasmin's experience during the election season. So for those that aren't listening, and Rad Rob, this is great for you as well for us to kind of celebrate, because we got to celebrate the wins. California is actually responsible for Republicans having control of the House of Representatives right now. There were some House seats that were flipped in California. We'll talk about how they just keep electing the worst governor ever, but the fact remains the same. They did flip some House seats in California. Yep. California has a law where ballot harvesting is legal. Okay, we don't like it. It is what it is. But I think some conservatives, and actually some of the more conservative active churches in California, they use that law to their advantage because they held places where folks can be trustworthy in dropping off their ballots, and then they could, essentially harvest these ballots. They would be collection sites. And so, there was really like a grassroots effort to flip these House seats. California's 5th Congressional District, Republican Tom McClintock defeated Democrat Mike Barkley, mollywopped him 60% to 40%. That had been held by the Democrat for a while, since 2013. And so that's a great flip. Also, California's 13th Congressional District, on December 2nd, finally, I don't know why it took almost a month to count the votes, but be that as it may, Republican John Duarte declared victory against Democrat State Assemblyman Adam Gray as well. And so, Democrat voters had outnumbered Republicans by a margin of 42 to 24% there. That district itself had not elected a Republican since 1974. So that is huge. It might be small wins, but again, it is the tide is turning, so to speak. But Jasmin actually volunteered and worked her polls and precincts during the early voting and on election day as a poll. Were you a poll watcher?
No, I was actually checking people in, and I was fired on my 3rd day, or I was asked not to come back on my 3rd day, whatever. Okay,
she was future endeavored on her 3rd day. So tell us about some of your experiences there working during this election cycle.
Yeah, first and foremost, I believe that a lot of grifting with elections began in the era of the 80s by the Bhagwan East Indian cult in Wild Wild Country, because in order for them to gain city council control and more state positions, they imported a bunch of homeless people into their cult and had them register the same day of voting to vote, and then they threw them back out. Now, here, there were homeless people voting. You don't have to have ID to vote. I asked someone for their ID, they didn't give it to me. Then when you have a mail-in ballot, you are supposed to bring it with you and turn it in. Some guy announced that he had it. He didn't want to give it in. He said he forgot. Maybe it's at home. I kind of walked outside to get it from him. And that's where they thought I had a very, non-ethical way of, doing things. And I told some other guy he shouldn't vote because he didn't speak English and he didn't understand anything. Then a homeless man was at the polling station, and a poll worker is helping him vote, like telling him what to do, because that's allowed. That is allowed in California. Oh. And now you have another thing. If you're an unregistered voter, or you're a family member or a friend of someone, or you're a child, you're allowed to help someone vote at the polls. I didn't want to let
which means you're allowed to influence their vote.
Right.
Yes.
As well.
Yes. Exactly. I wore my Mike Lindell t-shirt. I still can't believe I'm the only one who has not met him. And it just really disgusts me. But with that said, it was a very intense time. And I know that there were Republicans going in there to vote. I know that. And we were also instructed at one point that, if things get really hectic, let's just send them to a different polling station. Now, I saw them casting votes ballots that were supposed to be provisional as regular ballots. These were ballots from bums, people that didn't have ID. You are not supposed to do that. That is a provisional ballot. Mm-hmm. And I can't say anything because the vote center lead was African American. So I can't say anything because I'm not African American.
Because you'll be called a racist, right? Yeah.
Oh, people call me that all the time. I don't care. Right. You can't call me a racist because I have, I have dark genetics.
That's right, you do. It's I live in Tennessee, and we're revered amongst most states as having one of the
deep red.
Yes,
deep red,
and we have one of the most secure election system. Why is it that every state doesn't have the same rules? Like if we're talking about election security, you should make it uniform across the country.
Ooh, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I see where you're going. I see you're going with that, and I appreciate the concept. And unfortunately, as it is, I mean, it's constitutional because each state runs their own elections.
Right.
If the federal government says this is going to be the uniform way, then federalizing elections it would not be good.
Okay.
It wouldn't be at all, because then they're going to go after instead of electoral college vote, it'll be the popular vote. So that just means New York and LA is going to decide who the president is. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. That's fair.
I'm with you. Where I wish like everybody, in Florida where we're at, where we used to be purple. I mean, now we're like redder than Alabama. Like, but still, like you knew who won our elections
immediately
by 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
it was done. It was done. We just had a runoff election for my city commission seat here yesterday, and it was. I mean, the polls closed at 7. At 7:45, we knew who the winners were. Well run, seamless. And I wish that was the case for every state, but sadly, like each state, I mean. The states control the federal government. The federal government doesn't control the states, and so even the states that are liberal led, they run their own elections. That's why it's so vital and important to get good state legislators, or as they call them in California, state assemblymen and state assemblywomen, to get them elected, because those are the ones that can change the state laws for the better. It's like look, all these crazy lefties, when Roe got overturned, they're like, oh no, abortion's gone. No, it's not. Like, it's totally perfectly legal, sadly and unfortunately. Everybody's just going to California now. You know what I mean? And so as much as we disagree with what the policies are, unfortunately, it is constitutional for the states to run their own elections.
Yeah, but these problems never happened in Europe. And when you vote there, that's it. And there are no election. Look at Kerry Lake, for example. So some basement dwelling troll who stuffs her face with Pillsbury and looks like a Pillsbury doughboy wins. He's actually involved in the Senate. How in that?
She's the Secretary of State.
Secretary of State. Yeah.
Yeah. She's not. Jasmin. Exactly. She's responsible for running the election.
She's responsible for the rules
as the governor.
Yeah, the rules, the procedures.
She shouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
she shouldn't then drop one roll. Is she going to sue? Like Kerry Lake has to. She has to fight.
I think she has some lawsuits, and there was like incredible amount of actual. It's not like where the Democrats talk about voter suppression and these laws are racist. There was actual voter suppression in Arizona. There are emails and statements from folks that they said they couldn't vote for the first time since the 80s. Because it was such a mess, and they showed up to the polls, and there was no parking. The lines are out the door. They're sending them to these other precincts, and just because, like, again, the way the system is there, it's an absolute mess. And like, if you're just an average person that's just wanting to go cast your vote, and you go there and you realize you got to wait for 2 or 3 hours in line, like you're not gonna stay. You know what I mean? And so there were so many problems there. But anyway, be that as it may, we had another federal election that happened yesterday, the Georgia runoff. You want to talk about that, Rob?
Not really, but we kind of have to, because the first election was pretty close, and this one again was still pretty tight. I'll give Warnock his due. I mean, he campaigned hard. I mean, he was all over social media, just pushing every single day. I didn't see as much from Herschel, and maybe that's just because, I don't know, he has a different way of campaigning. But I mean, Democrats they like to unite, and that's one thing that the GOP and the Republicans aren't doing as well. Is the Democrats are on the same page, and they rally pretty strong. Look, Warnock is a heretic. I mean, he shouldn't even be able to be a man of God. He's a liar. He's
a Marxist.
He's a Marxist. He's a hypocrite. Yeah. He's a liar. He's many different things. I know Herschel has his own past, but everybody can atone for what they did in the past, obviously. For the people of Georgia to come back and for Republicans to not respond, I mean, let's just take for granted that this may be a fair election. Let's just say there weren't any shenanigans involved. I don't understand why Republicans didn't turn out for the runoff in droves, just so Warnock doesn't get elected. Jasmin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people stopped caring and stopped fighting, which brings me to this other really quick point. Just bounced into Kerry for a second.
Sure.
When I was watching Real America's Voice, they're running ads on there, anti-Kerry Lake, but for Hobbs. I mean, are those rhinos running that station? And I think maybe a lot of people thought that at first, okay, well, Herschel's going to win. But I think Republicans are very divided right now, everywhere, even the California GOP. They told a friend of mine to stop saying that there was election fraud. Why not? And I think there are a lot of rhinos in these parties and running these GOPs and so forth that need to be replaced. And people need to start like taking this seriously. People, I think in Georgia just gave up and they just said to themselves, okay, well, it's going to be another thing, another sham. I'm not going to do this. It's just not worth it. And that's what's going on, especially like some people probably can't afford to take off from work because it's $7 for milk in California.
Right.
But yet we're in a food crisis and you can go walk out with $900 in food for free.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, and again, I want to tip my cap to Herschel Walker, his first time running for office.
Yeah.
And look, he lost by 100,000 votes. That's man, it was like neck and neck. I remember it was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, Warnock's like stomping him. And then it was like Herschel's ahead. And then it was like 49-49. And it was like 50-50. And like, you know, Warnock, in the big scheme of things, Georgia's a large state. Atlanta itself is hugely populated.
Yeah.
He only lost by 100,000 votes, and that's huge. And here's the problem. Here's where I'm pissed is that Mitch McConnell, the absolute, you know, fake, spineless, gutless rhino leader of the minority leader of the U.S. Senate, rather than pouring in, he's responsible for the Senate campaign funds. Excuse me. So he's responsible for helping donate to candidates to help secure more seats in the United States Senate, which that should be our goal as Republicans, is to beat the Democrats, to put forth good, you know, conservative legislation. But instead of helping out Herschel Walker in a tightly contested race, Mitch McConnell put funds into the Alaska Senate seat for Lisa Murkowski, who is running up against another Republican, an America First Republican. Alaska has a weird ranked choice voting system, a whole nother can of worms that we can get into at another time. But Mitch McConnell was, you know, spent all that money over on that rather than dropping a couple mil for Herschel Walker.
We're on the same page, Drake.
Why? Because Herschel Walker, he's an America First candidate. Herschel Walker is endorsed by President Trump. Herschel Walker and Donald Trump are almost lifelong friends.
Yep.
Herschel Walker's not shy about where he stands as far as, you know, he's a conservative. He's definitely right of center. And, you know, I just think McConnell would think that Herschel is not somebody that's going to go along to get along. And so they didn't feel like they needed to invest in there. Turnout, runoffs are tough. Turnout could always be better for runoffs. They did have, I believe they had a 50% turnout of all registered voters, which I think is good for a runoff. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob.
Yes, no, it is.
I mean, 50% of registered vote. In my city commission runoff yesterday, we had like 9% of registered voters show up. So, I mean, getting 50% of the registered voters to show up is pretty good. So the turnout was, I think, there. Again, there just wasn't enough behind Walker to get him beyond the finish line. And, you know, again, as you said, Warnock campaigned hard. They brought in Obama. They brought in Biden. They brought in everybody to campaign for him.
Yeah,
Biden was there.
Yes.
Did they mainline him or something?
I know, right?
Yeah, Drake, you and I are always on the same page. That's why I kind of shared the screen. I was just looking up Mitch McConnell as you were bringing that up. A big part of what happened to Kerry Lake has to do with him as well. He pulled his super PAC a couple of weeks before Election Day. He was supporting her the entire way. Then, for whatever reason, he just pulled all that money out. So, on both fronts, you know, Mitch McConnell let us down, and he's another one I don't understand how he keeps, getting reelected. He's absolutely a rhino. We all know that, but nobody does anything about it, and that is the problem. Like I said, the GOP, and like Jasmin said as well, the GOP is split, and they're split in a lot of states around the country as well, not just in Washington. And it's just something that we need to fix. We need fresh, young minds in there, like you, Drake, like others, and until we do that, it's going to be business as usual for the GOP. And this is going to keep happening. If nobody wants to stand up and take a stand, they're just going to keep letting the Democrats bend us over, and we're never going to get a fair election again. Yeah,
it is going that way. And it's very refreshing, like at Turning Point USA events, to see young voters and to see them. They are educated. And the thing is, they have to get out there and educate their peers, because one thing I've realized with a lot of liberals is they are very misinformed. They don't understand anything, and they're not willing to learn. Instead, they do blah, 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 blah. It's that age group where they just want to argue with you. And I have no problem putting people in their place when they start that at stores and anywhere. I mean, you see these kids today, they're in this pajamas and they look like they woke up out of bed and they're going to work. You go to Turning Point USA, that's the future. At least you want them to be the future. And, just being there is very refreshing to me. I know that they have AmFest coming up as well, so I might go to that. I don't know.
Absolutely. I think Turning Point USA does an incredible job of really pushing out the young vote. And one thing I do think, we have to do as Republicans. And here in my local party, where, by the grace of God, I got elected into leadership, recently. We'll talk about that. But I think we got to figure out a way to where in the primaries, it's not such a bloodbath on our side. Like the Democrats, like their primaries are not like ours. Generally, from my experience, they'll have some primaries, but what they'll do is they'll really get behind their one candidate. They'll unite behind them. And then Republicans, we just beat the bejesus out of each other in the primaries and spend all of our money. And the Democrats are well funded for the general election. And here in Florida, we have late primaries. Our primaries are at the end of August, elections beginning in November. So that's not much time to reload on your funds. And so I think there's got to be a way to where we just we don't tear each other's throats apart in these primaries. Primaries are healthy. The competition's healthy. But again, man, we just beat the crap out of each other as well. Jasmin, what time of the when are California's primaries generally?
Oh God,
I want to say they're at the beginning. I want to say they're like in June.
I'm about to say July or June, like June-ish, like mid to late June.
Right,
It's so confusing what they're doing, and it should just be one day of the year for voting, and only one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the beginning of June. Mid-June is when they start. It's just when you brought up the thing with Mitch McConnell, I wonder if he was the one that ran those anti-Carrie Lake ads on Real America's Voice.
He may have.
That was the infamous Lincoln Project. Actually, the Lincoln Project, which is a group of never Trumpers that have formed a PAC to advertise against America First candidates. Anybody that's associated with MAGA or Trump, they advertise against them. They go after them, and some of their what's ironic is some of the folks from the Lincoln Project in the past, they have been arrested and charged with child porn as well. So that just shows you the kind of people that we're dealing with.
Ew.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Pedophiles. Yeah.
The pedos, yes, we love pedos, don't we? They're releasing more in California, but I just don't understand how these suburban moms are so stupid that they keep voting for Gavin Newsom. He's putting these pedophiles in the streets. They're not doing background checks. They're not registering. They don't have to be registered sex offenders now. They're just throwing them out there in the street.
Mm-hmm.
It's sick. It's disgusting, and it's Drake and I have talked about this, a lot on the show. Is that they're going after our children, and that's where they're going to hit a lot of us the hardest is our children, because that's as parents, that's our pride and joy. I mean, that's our legacy. That's our creations, and what California is allowed to get away with is. It's ridiculous. And it's not just California. I mean, there's a movement sweeping around the entire country when it comes to that, especially in public schools. But how these people are not held accountable and arrested. Honestly, Gavin Newsom should be put in prison for the rest of his life for what he's allowed, people to do in his state. But I don't know how he keeps getting reelected. It's mind-boggling.
Fake votes, maybe. I don't know. I mean, Larry Elder conceded way too soon.
Yeah.
He had Gavin had Biden coming here, Obama, all these people. I thought Elder should have won, but here's the other issue we're having. There are too many people, too many Republicans running for the same thing. Mm-hmm. So we have to start, put aside the egos and get the best candidate in. Don't divide the votes. If you could have 100 votes one place, instead of 30 here, 20 here, 10 here, 10, it doesn't make any sense. And that was another issue we had because all these other people were running in the recall. And that means there are a lot of people that don't like you.
Right.
So it's the second time we've had a recall. I think they should try it again to get them recalled because between kids, I mean, and there are a lot of single mothers that put their kids in public school. They can't afford to put them anywhere.
Right.
And
I think just the fact that there was a recall, I think that's huge because that's truly a grassroots we the people. Like you have to get a ton of valid signatures to even force a recall.
Oh yeah.
So I think that was that in and of itself was a victory to be celebrated.
Oh, I was one of those people that would get signatures from people. I also had the one for Gascon, Gavin Durant of San Francisco, who's here. He looks like Fauci a little bit.
Yeah.
Like a mouse.
Rob, let's talk about it a little more and then let's wrap this up.
People are losing their minds over Elon Musk. Liberals are leaving Twitter by in droves, but they always want to come back for a day and tell you that they're pissed off about something. But then they're going to leave again tomorrow. So Mick Foley being one of those, by the way. It's how they could get away with saying whatever they want, and people with opposing views can't. I can't wrap my head around that. I literally can't, like... Elon wants everyone to have the same forum, right? I mean, that's what he's saying. He wants free speech to rule. We can say what we want. The left can say what they want. The people in the middle can say what they want. Aliens can say what they want, whatever. And for whatever reason, liberals are against free speech, which, again, they were the ones that have controlled the narrative for the last, 12 years, something like that. So when he released the Biden files, the Hunter Biden files, people lost their mind. But as Drake said, as we were talking off air, it's stuff we knew already. Were you surprised, Jasmin, that Elon took the route that he did and decided to release that information? And do you think there's more coming?
I'm not surprised one bit, and I'm so glad he did. I'm waiting for them to reinstate Mike Lindell's account. They reinstated Trump.
Right.
I was shadow banned from there for a while, but I'm no longer shadow banned. I think he's going to keep putting stuff out. I'm sure he's afraid there might be, a little red target on him, though. So that's the other issue. But I think he's doing America a very big service by doing this, by putting that out there, because they hid that laptop right before the elections on purpose. Yeah. So what happens if we see all of that? Like, we see more evidence. Could Trump just sue and kick that old man into a geriatric home or something and get rid of all those people and that cackling woman? I mean, that's what you would hope would happen, because we're in a real mess now.
We're in a mess. And I don't know if legally, I don't know what the precedent, there's no precedent for that really. I mean, I don't know if that is an option where they can, kick the standing president out because there was collusion, or I don't know. That's something for the legal analysts to get into. But, I talked to you this morning, Jazz, about, stuff I've seen on WikiLeaks is disgusting. I mean, Hunter Biden naked with his niece in the room, or laying in bed with her, or, taking selfies with her. And Joe is involved in other stuff as well. I mean, we all know about him, creeping up on girls and sniffing people and all that. Like, it's a weird family. And what I really want to know, Jazz, do you think anything will come out of this? Like, is Biden untouchable, or do you really think that eventually he's going to have to just concede and resign, quite honestly?
He reminds me of the Manchurian Candidate, the movie.
Yes.
And what we're doing now reminds me of the Mitchell Effect. If you ever watch that film on Netflix, the Watergate scandal, I think it's going to come out. I think it's going to be way too much, but I also feel as though there'll be something there to maybe people start flipping on each other because it's too much there. And I think Clinton would be the first to flip because she has the most to lose. Right. Maybe Kamala, because she thinks she's going to get some kind of a book deal. And maybe that alcoholic, Pelosi, who knows? But I think that's what'll happen. Then he'll have to concede, or maybe he'll just do it on his own. And, then it's the first time in American history we're in a situation like this.
Yes.
There's so many different outcomes. Or maybe he doesn't concede and people keep turning their faces and dealing with inflation, dealing with pedophilia. It's a very tough time.
Well, I mean, we still don't know who's on the Epstein list. I mean, that should be first and
I
foremost.
have that list. Oh no, I have the plain logs. So when it was sold to what was it, to TMZ, that was me, because my friend is an investigator on that, and he was the one who produced the Netflix special. So Clinton was on a bunch of those flights with underage girls. It's like 80 pages. Then you never see Trump on there. Then you see Naomi Campbell on there quite a few times. Was she giving him street credibility as a Victoria's Secret model scout? Because Epstein was also arrested in Santa Monica, California, for assaulting a young girl who's 14, telling her that he was a Victoria's Secret talent scout. So that list, I have the notepads, note sheets. I mean, all this was handed over to TMZ a while ago.
So why hasn't that made the light of day?
It's made the light of day. It was already out there before.
Okay.
David Copperfield. And the way they leave messages for the secretary is, I want a French lesson with... preferably a blonde instructor, which is 39 minus 14, or that's too old. 39 minus 6 minus 20. That's more like it. And that's how they were doing that. These were their code messages. It's Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, what about her? What about Peter Nygaard, who also was the Epstein of Scandinavia, who was in California?
Right.
You know, it's all these people get away with it somehow. I don't think he was. I don't think he killed himself either.
No, I don't know. I don't believe he did either. But it's insane that people aren't being prosecuted for this. Let's just put it that way. It boggles my mind how that shouldn't be the number one issue right now. It's just putting people away that were involved in that. I mean, families were ruined, lives were lost. It's disgusting, it's twisted, it's perverted, and I hope Jesus comes soon, Drake, because I don't know how much more I can take of all this. You got any other questions as we wrap it up here, Jake?
No, I was luckily I was elected to leadership of my local Republican Party here in Seminole County.
Congratulations!
And so that was, I want to have the new chair come on the podcast as well. But I want to tell you, for those that are listening out there, it's a testament to getting involved locally, getting involved in your local Republican Party. Look, the Republican Party is not the savior of us, but the Democrat Party is the cause of all of our problems. I can tell you that. And so we got to get involved. And look, this is the results of 2 years of hard work. I did build a lot of name ID through running for state office, and which was, in my election for the executive board, overwhelmingly won with a super majority of the votes. So that was refreshing. And this election cost me a lot less as well. So that was good. But regardless, we have 4 America First, conservatives running the Republican Party of Seminole County now. And so that is huge. Mm-hmm. And so for those out there, find your local Republican Party office, get involved as a precinct committee person, work your precinct, help register voters, work the elections, bring coffee, bagels, and donuts to volunteers, do the grunt work for a while, and then look into running for leadership in your local Republican Party. That is a huge way to influence the culture around you and to help register more Republicans. And so, yeah, man, blessed, honored, grateful, about to serve, I'm going to serve a 2-year term. So it's definitely very exciting. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys, and we're going to have the new chairman of the Republican Party of Seminole County come on here very soon as well.
We need to work on your school board next. So that's
a big deal. I want to run for something like that. I'd like to see what we have in Santa Monica. They had this Republican Women of Santa Monica that I was with briefly, but I don't think it's too many women in there and too much the
Women Federated Group.
They're cool. A better handbag and all that. So it's a waste. When I do this, I want to work with guys. I'm not working with a bunch of women who want to have a more expensive handbag. I don't want that.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good. Jasmin, tell everybody about your podcast, where they can find you, upcoming events. Let everybody know what is up in the world of Jasmin St. Clair.
Okay, so obviously, okay, so XPW Wrestling this Saturday, January 10th, and it's on Fight TV for those of you who may not be. They're live. And then also in January, I forgot the date. I think it's the 21st. My podcast is Crazy Train with Jasmin St. Clair, and it's Crazy with a K. It's out every Wednesday. Then I have a show on Rumble, Ice Cold Conservative, which Drake was on. And I have a lot of other guests on there. Gabrielle Clark. I have a detransitioner that was on the show. Lexit. A lot of people have been on there. I've been very blessed to get good guests. My first guest was Laverne Spicer. But hopefully I'll, be on the Republican board locally. And, any TV shows and stuff like that, obviously you sign NDA, so you can't say anything.
Yeah.
And then I have a film coming out soon, Road to Terzetto. And that should be dropping any day in January. So everything's cool. I just want to make this country a better place and keep wrestling and doing fun stuff.
Well, Jasmin, thank you very much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you face to face. I know we've been chatting offline, but you are very, very busy, and we absolutely appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me, and I hope to see many more really great guests on the show.
We definitely will. That's right. Right, Drake?
Amen, for sure. Thank you so much, Jasmin. You are absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, guys.
You too.
You too.
Take care.
Take care.
All right, Drake. Another great show in the books. What do you got coming up here, brother?
What do I not have going on? Find me on Instagram. Again, we got a lot of local Republican Party business. We got XPW going on. So, it's exciting.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this show. We'll be back next week for another edition of Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz. Have a great week. See you next week, guys.
Thanks for listening to Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at UncanceledPod. You can also send us an email at uncanceledpodcast@gmail.com. You've been listening to Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz right here on the Rad Rob Radio Network.